everyone. Good day. My name is Tejas, and welcome to the Future Doctor podcast by Gyanberry. Future Doctor podcast is an initiative by Gyanberry where we educate high school students and their families as to how to prepare successfully to get into a medical school, and not only get into a medical school but also how to successfully thrive in a medical school and become a good doctor in the future. So if you are someone who is looking to become a doctor and get into a top university, do not miss out this podcast. Do listen it out. You're going to get a lot of insights and very valuable information throughout this talk. So in today's podcast, I'm joined by an amazing university and an amazing team. I have the team members from UMCH, Universität Medical Campus in Hamburg in Germany. I'm joined by Mr. Faisal and Miss Vivian. So welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having
you.
us. Pleasure to be here.
Yes. So if you are a student who is looking to study medicine in Europe and specifically in Germany, of course, because Germany is one of the top destinations for higher studies, then this is the podcast for you. So Mr. Faisal or Miss Vivian, I would like you to introduce both of you and the university before we get started with the podcast.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. So my name is Faisal. I'm one of the study advisors here at the UMCH. I'm joined alongside my colleague, Miss Vivian, and the UMCH is the first university to offer a 6-year medicine program in English in Germany. And so we're happy to be here and, get into more detail and, provide, more information and, clarify, a lot of people's questions. So can't wait to get into it.
Yeah, look forward to.
Fantastic. Welcome, both of you. We will soon start, we'll soon start with the Q&A session, wherein my colleague Ria, who is our admissions manager, she has already received a lot of questions on behalf of the students and parents, which will come your way, and the students and parents are looking forward to hear from both of you. So over to you, Ria.
Hello, good evening, everyone. So I will start with a very interesting question that I'm sure everybody is very excited to know about. So what has inspired the UMCH curriculum, and how does it reflects the value of medical education in a multicultural environment that we have nowadays?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I mean, what sets our study concept apart from other universities is that we teach medicine in small groups. So we offer the studies in a classroom type of environment where you would have no more than 25 students in a lecture, and our studies is very hands-on. It's very practice orientated, which in the world demands this basically. I mean, we need medical professionals that have a lot of experience, and we try to give them that experience from the very first day they start their studies. So, and in a multicultural society or world, our campus or our university is very diverse and international. So we do not have, quotas or certain limited spots available for certain countries. So, we accept applicants from all over the world. We don't, discriminate in that sense. And currently we have over actually 40 nationalities on campus. And we have students, from the UAE, from the GCC region, locals and expats. And, we have a lot of students from, Southeast Asia or South Asia as well, especially, from India. So we are a, growing community, and, there's someone, from every part of the world here on campus.
Well, that's great. It is a lot relief for the parents to know that it's a small group. So very personalized attention would be given to each of the students. So that is what all the parents definitely are looking forward to. So thank you for that valuable insight from your end. So I have categorized the questions. So I will be asking you as per the categories. So we can move on to academics and program. So if you could, briefly tell us about the Hamburg program and so something about the program that can give some information to the students, which can help them to shortlist and apply to your university.
Yeah, for sure. So we offer the one program on our campus here in Hamburg, which is the 6-year MBBS ND program in general medicine, taught entirely in English. The program itself, as I mentioned previously, is practice orientated. So the first 2 years of the program are what we refer to as the preclinical phase, where they will be having, their theory-based lectures on campus. And then from the 3rd year onwards until the 6th year, is when the clinical phase of the program starts. So a majority time of the semester, they will be in one of our close to 40 teaching hospitals in Germany, doing their clinical hands-on, practical training. So that's basically the program itself in a nutshell. And obviously, it's all taught in English. So if one doesn't have any prior knowledge of German, there's nothing to worry about because it's not a requirement. And we actually teach all our international students that don't speak German the German language on campus. So they would be receiving 2 to 3 lessons per week, and for the entire 6-year program. So hopefully, by the end, they would be also speaking German fluently, which would enable them to live here and start their careers in Germany if that's what they plan on doing.
Wow, that sounds interesting. So, if you could let us know how many international seats are available for medicine and dentistry programs, and if you could you give us a brief idea about what is the acceptance rate and after the entrance exam is concluded.
Yeah, sure. So we have 220 study spots in total per academic year, and they are open for everyone. So even if all 220 study spots were, international students, it makes no difference. So we don't have like a limitation when it comes to that. And so the way our application process works is obviously, as you mentioned, we do have an entrance exam. So the first step would be to fulfill the first eligibility criteria, which is usually, the high school diploma. And, we accept all curriculums. And there are some curriculums that would have a sub requirement of, sub requirements, but that we can get into detail later on. And then once the applicant has fulfilled the first eligibility requirement, they would then move on to the entrance exam, which is a online entrance exam. It's 2 parts. And once they've done that, then they would, once they've passed the exam, they would receive their study spot. So we have a first come, first served basis. And because we give out our study spots successively, there's no ranking system or waiting list. So once the seats are gone, they are then, unfortunately gone.
Understood. Thank you so much for that. If you could also let us know something about the entrance exam, what kind of questions and subjects students are expecting to be well prepared of.
Sure. So the entrance exam is a 2-part exam that happens on the same day. So usually the participants will start with the brief evaluation, which is 75 questions in total, all multiple choice. And it's 25 questions in biology, 25 in chemistry, and 25 in general knowledge. And the second part of the exam is the 20-minute motivational based interview in English. So the first part of the exam, there's basically 2 ways to prepare for the exam. Either we recommend, the applicant to revise what they've done in high school, especially in the final years in biology and chemistry. they can either prepare that way, or they could, prepare by doing our foundation program that we have that can be done in person or online. We have a 3-month program that also prepares, for the entrance exam, but we can touch upon that later on. And then the interview portion of the exam is basically we want to, find out more about the applicant, who they are, why they've applied, why medicine, and what actually, motivated them to make the decision to pursue medicine. And then the interviewer would usually, before the interview, look at the applicant's CV and personal statement, and then, have them go into a bit more detail and touch upon a couple of things that the interviewer has found interesting. And during the interview, we also actually assess the applicant's level of English. So for that reason, they don't need to provide us with the English proficiency, certificate as part of the application documents. We do that during the interview.
So I understand there is no ranking list or set rules there. So how are the students assessed? I mean, how are the shortlisting done? And additionally, if the student passes the entrance exams, receives the offer, I understand it would be a conditional offer based on clearing their high school requirements. So if you could elaborate something on those lines, what are the academic requirements that student have to be prepared for? And what is expected out of the student from the high school level?
So we obviously accept, all curriculums, and I think the most popular ones in the UAE or in the region where you guys are active in is usually CBSE, A levels, American curriculum, IB, and maybe the national curriculum in the UAE as well. And for CBSE, they just need to successfully pass their CBSE and receive their final high school certificate. For A levels, they would need to do a minimum of 2 subjects in A levels and pass that as well. For IB, they need to, get a minimum of 24 points and also receive their final IB diploma. So they need to have the IB diploma. And for the national, UAE curriculum, they just need to also successfully graduate high school. And last but not least, for the American curriculum, they need to do the American high school diploma. And then in order to complement that, they need either SAT, AP, or ACT as well. So either one of those, not all of them, they can choose one. And those are the, academic requirements. And then obviously, the reason we have the entrance exam is to filter out the applicants. So the questions are designed in such a way for us to see if they have that basic understanding or the understanding necessary in order to study medicine. So if they grasp basic concepts in biology and they understand the theories in chemistry, and once they prove that to us by scoring high on the test, that's how they get their study offer, and then that's how we know, okay, these guys are meant for medicine and they're just not here because for the sake of it, let's say.
Right. Thank you. That was really detailed requirements of understanding. So student has to pass the entrance exam, pass the interview, and make sure that they receive good grades, as you mentioned, for their high school as well on the set requirements. In case a student falls short of something on admission on the high school, then is there still chance that their offer is valid with the university? Is there something they can do and still get into UMCH?
So if they fall short whilst having conditional acceptance, you mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, in that case, obviously, we would need them to, repeat the final year of high school, or actually then, get the high school diploma. They would need to, carry on their high school. But the seat that was, given to them for the academic year, which they unfortunately didn't manage to get into, would be then, transferred into the upcoming year. So the seat will still be there. And it will still be conditional acceptance with the condition being that they get the high school diploma, yeah.
All right, perfect. So, coming to a related question, so you did talk about the preparatory course that the university have started. So, if you could, briefly explain us about the preparatory course, its benefits, and if the student does this preparatory course, are they still required to give the entrance exam and interview for the first year admissions?
Yeah, so we do have preparatory courses. We have a 3-week course and a 3-month course. The 3-week course basically covers the subjects of biology, chemistry, and physics, and it's more of a crash course type of setup. But the 3-month course is more intense because it does cover more subjects. So alongside biology, chemistry, physics, you have anatomy, you have biochem, you have medical theory, and you have mathematics as well. And the good thing about the 3-month course is that the students are also specifically prepared for the entrance exam. So after the 3-month course is finished, they can take the entrance exam, and because they've been preparing for 3 months, they pass. So up until now, there's been 100% passing rate for those that have done the 3-month course and then taken the exam afterwards, and they've confirmed and received their study spot. But the courses themselves are open for everybody. So it's not a prerequisite that you must, register for UMCH afterwards. If you want to get, initial insights into medicine, 3 months is what we recommend, and it can be done in person or online. And 3 months you're on campus, you get in contact with the professors, with fellow participants, and you get a good idea of what to expect if you do decide to study medicine, and what you have to deal with then for the next 10, 15 years, because medicine is a lifelong career and it's lifelong learning. So it does confirm to the participant if medicine is actually something that they want to do. So it's for two types of people: those that know they want to do medicine but they want to do the foundation to make sure they are up to date on all the subjects, or it's for people that just want to try medicine out for 3 months, see if they like it or not, and then decide afterwards.
Wonderful. So coming back to the academics or the curriculum, now if the student is admitted and they start studying, how is the exam structure from the first year onwards? And what are the passing rates of the student? Are they able to cope up with the academics? And how the university is helping the students, right from the start?
So right from the start, because there is that direct, um, access to the professors due to the small teaching groups, our students, they have the advantage of having access to professors and, teachers in general, before, during, or after the lecture as well. So obviously the professor's aim is for everyone to proceed and go up together into the, semesters. And if someone does have difficulty during the lecture, or they didn't understand something, or they want clarification, they can, book an appointment directly with the professor. And, the professor will sit with them, take the time out to, make sure they understand and they're not falling behind. But we have many ways a student will get examined after they've completed a module in the semester. So you have the written examinations, which are multiple choice. We have oral examinations, and we have, practice-based examinations as well, where they would, have to conduct an experiment, or, show something, or use the 3D anatomy table, in the anatomy module, and, perform something. But there's many ways for them to get examined, and obviously, medicine being as demanding as it is, usually you don't pass on your first try, right? And it's a difficult subject no matter where you study, but they do have the option, of retaking an exam and, or repeating the course. So in order that they do pass and do receive the credit points that are necessary in order to, proceed into the higher semesters.
Understood. Thank you so much for that. So, could you elaborate on the clinical training opportunities which are offered to the students, and when does the training begins? When the student introduced to the patients, and what is the process, and from when the students are expected to, start taking the clinical rotations and things like that?
Yeah, sure. So the clinical rotation part starts from the third year onwards. And how it works is, so we have a network of teaching hospitals that are partnered with us, and they cooperate with us, and they train our students. And what happens is during the second year of studies, halfway through or towards the end, they all, send their representatives over to our campus, and each of them present their hospital to the students. And then the student actually has the freedom or the choice to choose which hospital they would like to do their clinical training in. So they make a short list, and then ultimately they are assigned to a hospital, which also becomes like an anchor hospital. So they will be going to the same one every semester, and the patient student contact starts, from the very beginning. So they will then go to the hospital, and they receive what we refer to as logbooks. So it's predetermined, what the student needs to cover, and how many hours do they need to cover in each area of medicine. And they will do that accordingly. I mean, the teaching hospitals are trained and briefed on how to train our students. And yeah, then from the third year onwards, every semester, for the majority of the time, they go to these hospitals full time, and even there. So they're not standing in the corner, just shadowing what the doctor is doing. They're actually, involved in the process, in the treatment, in the consultations, and they have, direct access to the patients. What I do need to mention is, because the clinical training does take place in a German teaching hospital, obviously the students are required to speak German on at least B2 level to be able to communicate with the patients, with the staff. But we take care of that part. I mean, even if a student doesn't speak German once they apply, like I mentioned, we give them, German lessons 2 to 3 times a week, and we ensure that they reach, certain levels by certain years. And obviously, by the end of the second year, before they start with their clinical training, they should be at B2 level. And then, they speak enough German to be going into these hospitals and actually, communicating with patients and staff.
Wow, that's quite relief to hear, because knowing language is really, really important in order to connect with the patient. So I'm sure students will now consider applying to German universities. In addition to this, I have another question. So I understand that the transfer applications are also taken into consideration.
Yeah.
So are there any entrance exam if a student is transferring from one university to yours? And what is the process? And do they have to learn German language as a prerequisite to apply or take the transfer to UMCH?
Mhm. So in theory, we do accept, transfer students and requests, but as is the case, in other universities as well, it's always a case by case evaluation. So obviously, if they do make the transfer request, they would need to provide us with, their university transcripts, and with the syllabus and the curriculum they've done, and if they've passed all, subjects until now, if they've failed something. So they do need to provide a lot of documents, and then ultimately the transfer request is assessed by our dean. And then obviously you need to compare the syllabus, the curriculum, see how closely it matches, and then ultimately we can decide in which year the student can transfer into. Obviously, seeing as German is a requirement for the third year onwards because of the clinical training part, if a transfer student doesn't speak the German language, obviously it's difficult to have them transfer into a higher year. So obviously then German would be a prerequisite if they, are already a higher year student and they want to transfer over. And if the curriculums match, then they would need to also speak German in order to, do the clinical training part. But we do accept transfer requests, but if anyone is interested in that, they should then, make a transfer inquiry, and we will then provide them a checklist of all the documents they need to send over. It will take some time to assess, because it's no easy task. And then once it is assessed, the applicant will be informed if the request has been accepted, and if yes, which year they could, look forward to joining us at UMCH.
Oh, that's great. So they do have an option to look into UMCH for the later years as well. Okay. Moving on, I would like to know a few details about the finances. So what are the tuition fees for the first year admissions as well as for the foundation programs that you mentioned?
So the tuition fees for international applicants is currently 17,400 euros per semester. We have 2 semesters per year, and there's a one-time application fee of 595 euros, and there is a one-time enrollment fee of 4,500 euros. The foundation program, the costs usually 6,800, but we also have a somewhat of a discount for the upcoming one, which is now 5,980 for any last minute registrants. But we are very flexible when it comes to the tuition fees, and then if students are looking to for installment plans or different deadlines or something like that, then obviously we can discuss that when the time comes. But yes, those are our fees, and fees may or may not increase. The world is changing, but one thing students should know is the fees that they that are applicable once they sign will be the fees that they pay for the entire 6 years. So even if the fees were to increase, 2 years, 3 years later, that doesn't apply to them. They would be paying the fees that they signed up for. So yeah.
Wow, that's good to hear. Thank you so much for that. I would also want to understand about the university accommodation facilities, if there are any, and what do the general international students prefer? Do they go for on-campus accommodation, or they are looking for off-campus? And how is university assisting these students?
So we don't have student dorms on campus grounds, but what we do have is, partnerships with several accommodation providers throughout the city. And some of them have their facilities, close to the campus. Some are a bit further away. But in Hamburg, with the public transport system that we have, everything is easily reached and very quickly and efficiently as well. And the types of apartments that they offer are fully furnished studio apartments. So single occupancy. So each student would have their own kitchen and their own bathroom, so they won't be, sharing with anyone else on the same floor. So they have everything to themselves. And obviously, these buildings, they have common areas as well, social areas within the building for the students to get together, or if they want to cook together, obviously they can do that as well. But international students usually take up this option because the process of getting the apartment is pretty straightforward. Because we are partnered with these providers, they can then, get in direct touch with the accommodation provider and make mention that they are a UMCH student and that they are looking for an apartment for this time period. And then, they can sign the lease directly with the accommodation provider. It's, moving countries is a massive, step for international students. And, accommodation is, one of the biggest headaches. So these providers, it's an apartment big enough for a student. They have everything they need. It's fully furnished. So they don't need to worry about then, buying a bed and buying cutlery and, dishes and stuff like that. So they just turn up with their suitcase and they're ready to go. But once they've been in Germany for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, they familiarize themselves with the system and they learn the language. Then obviously they can, find, an apartment on their own, or they can get together with a couple of friends and, find shared apartments for all of them.
Right. So if you could also let us know what is the average cost of living in Hamburg?
So the average cost, I mean, it really depends on the student's lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
So the student would need to look at, their lifestyle. But um, in general, you could look at, off the top of my head, obviously, monthly expense with rent, with, food and transport, and maybe, you throw in a couple of leisure activities in as well. You're looking at 1,400, 1,500 euros per month. So that would include, as I said, the rent, the food, the going out occasionally. They are students, so obviously they do go out. But that would cover, most things, 14 to 1,500 euros per month.
Great. Thank you so much for that as well. And moving on, I would like to ask a couple of questions about licensure and medical practice. So, how does UMCH curriculum prepare students for nuances of licensure exams in various countries, particularly those with different healthcare system?
So we obviously our program and the degree itself is widely accredited and recognized. And for example, in Germany or throughout the EU or UK, they can apply directly for the medical license without, especially in Germany, they don't need to do a state exam or they don't need to do an additional licensing exam. How the system works in Germany, and this applies, for international students, is that they will make an application for the license at the federal office, and they would need to fulfill the three main requirements. So number one being that they've successfully received the diploma, which obviously they will get from us. Secondly, they need to prove that they speak the German language on at least B2 level. And then they need to prove that they understand medical terminology on C1 level. And once they fulfill these three requirements, and obviously you have the two others where they need to have a clean criminal record and be physically and mentally fit as well to practice medicine. But once they fulfill those requirements, they will receive their medical license. In the UK, for example, our graduates don't need to do the P-Lab. We are approved by the General Medical Council in the UK, and they can get going without the P-Lab. Our students are eligible for the USMLE if they are interested in going to the US after 6 years, and we actually help prepare them for the USMLE. So both parts of the exam during the studies, so during the time that they're here, and they take the exams as well whilst they're studying here, and those are students that already know what they want to do after 6 years. But in other countries, usually they would have to take a equivalency test, that's issued by the medical council in said country. Yeah, I mean, there's either the direct recognition or the path of having to do an equivalency test and passing that, and then continuing with either further studies or with work.
All right. Thank you so much for that. So I understand that once they are able to meet all the requirements that you mentioned, the student can start working in the government or the public or private hospitals in Germany.
So yeah, I mean, in the beginning they could work as a doctor's assistant, for example. But obviously, students are ambitious and they want to specialize in specific fields, right? So usually what they do is after the 6 years, they go straight into their specialization. And in Germany in particular, they can apply directly to the program and, the university and hospital that offers the specialization. And depending on what they choose, obviously they can look forward to another 5 years, 7 years, 10 years of studies, Well, the
That's
good thing
great.
is, they would be specialists in training. So alongside their studies, they would also be working in that particular field. And the process in Germany is pretty straightforward. I mean, there's no obstacles or limitations when it comes to that. In other countries, when it comes to specialization, you'd first need to take a state exam, and then specializations have certain seats available. And depending on how high you rank, you have first choice. And then, if you don't make it, you either have to wait another year, take the exam again in the hopes of ranking higher. But in Germany, that's not the case. You can apply directly to the specialization of choice.
That's great. That's great. All right. So, lastly, I have only one question to ask on behalf of all my students. What are the specific initiatives in place to support students' mental health? Because I understand the course is very lengthy and they sometimes feel homesick. It's a new climate, new environment, so they will struggle, of course. So how UMCH helps these students to cope up with these difficulties throughout the 6 year, not just for the first semester, but throughout their studies.
Mm. Yeah, I mean that's a very good point. I mean, the first thing we do is when they first come to Germany and they're on campus, we assign them buddies that are in the higher years. So basically, students that are already, that are past that phase of homesickness and the assimilation into a new country. So they have those buddies, and they quickly become friends, and those buddies um, show them the way, and they guide them, how to do certain things, and what to do, what not to do, and they usually get together, and in order for the new students to not feel too far away from home. And like I said, we have a very diverse cohort of students. So if you're a student, let's say from the UAE, you'll find a lot of students here from the same from Dubai, from Abu Dhabi, that you can get along with, or especially Indian students. We have actually a South Asian society on campus, and we have our Indian student ambassador. So the society, they get together regularly, and they go out, they do activities together, they celebrate each other's festivals, like Holi, Diwali, Eid, and so they try to create a home away from home, let's say. And Hamburg, being the city that it is very international, especially nowadays. It's very diverse, and it caters to all backgrounds, all countries. So even if you do feel far away from home, maybe you miss your mother's cooking, or something like this. There's more than enough opportunities, to not miss out, and there's definitely something in Hamburg available for everyone to not miss home that much. But alongside that, we do obviously have our counselors on campus that take care of the students in case they need help, and you know and reassure them that the world's not ending, and then they'll manage their medical studies, they'll manage their exams. But obviously, we do have counselors that help the students in that regard.
Thank you so much. I think that is all the questions that I had from my students. And it was lovely taking insights from you, first-hand insights, of course. So I'm sure it's going to benefit all our students. And if they'll have any more questions, of course, we'll get in touch with you in future as well.
Definitely. I mean, it was a pleasure being here, and hopefully we could answer all the students' questions. But yeah, I mean, we're always here, and in case there's anything, they know who to contact, and they're more than welcome also to visit us on campus. We'd love to give these students a tour, show the campus as well. But we trust they're in good hands at Gyanberry. So yeah, pleasure being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Faisal and Vivian, both of you, for taking out the time. At least I learned a lot. I'm sure the students and families, when they're going to watch this, I think they will have a very good head start. A lot of questions were answered, and your team is very supportive, very proactive. So I'm sure when they will reach out to you as well, they're going to get a great support. And I encourage all families to visit the campus. I think, you online is one thing, and then physically visiting is altogether another thing. So I encourage parents to do that as well. Thank you so much. Wish you both a lovely evening. We're looking forward for students to applying to UMCH, and hopefully they become a successful doctor as well.